Hi guys, Amity here and welcome back to another video. Today we have yet another tier list video, but this one is going to be a little different. So, for the past year and a bit, I have been working through playing the Halo Master Chief Collection, which features all of the Halo games 1 through to 4, along with Reach and ODST. So to cut a long story short, my boyfriend loves the Halo series, and I've always kind of had an interest in it, but I just never really got around to playing them. I played the demo for Reach and a little bit of Halo 3 back on the Xbox 360, but that was long before I ever really got into video games, so even on easy mode, I could never get more than a few missions into them. But here we are, many years later, where I would like to think my FPS skills have improved just slightly. So, as a fun activity, my boyfriend and I have been working through our way through all of the games in local co-op mode, and we finally, a few weeks ago, finished the end of it. Now, I have a lot of thoughts about this series, so I wanted to try and share them in the form of a ranking video. So let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. What is your favourite Halo game and what is your least favourite? Bear in mind, this ranking video is only going to include the games from the Master Chief Collection, so that means that Halo 5 and Halo Infinite are not going to be a part of this video. Also worth noting that I played these games in co-op, split screen mode, and on normal difficulty, so my experience may vary a little bit to what yours was. Also, just worth noting as well, this video is going to contain some mild spoilers, so just be prepared for that. But strap in, it's going to be a long one. Alright, so we're going to start with my favourite of them all, Halo number 3. Now, going in, I'm aware that I might have a slight nostalgia bias towards this because it's technically the first Halo game I ever played, and it's one of the first video games that I played too, but I did try to put aside my personal sentiments and give it a fair shot. We actually ended up finishing this entire game in a single sitting, which is the first and only time I've ever done that in my life. There was just something about it and I couldn't put the controller down. I think most of that comes down to the pacing of the game. One complaint you'll hear me make about some of the other games on this list is just the length of some of the missions. And with Halo 3, I never really had a problem with it. Every time I started to feel myself get tired of an area, it would almost immediately throw something different at me and just move me on to the next battle, which helped a lot. Honestly, as I write this script now, I don't even have a definitive reason why I liked the game so much. My only explanation is it's just a fun as fuck game. The vehicle sections stand out quite a bit to me too. There's just such a large variety of things you get to ride and fly, and it feels like almost every single level you get put in the driver's seat of something completely different. And of course, the iconic final level driving the Warthog is an absolute standout moment of the series. There was just a real sense of accomplishment as well for me personally, going back and being able to beat a game I had so much trouble with years and years ago. But at the end of the day, I don't think anyone's really going to be mad that I'm putting Halo 3 this high up on the list. Next up is everybody's fan favourite, Halo Reach. Reach is also just a fun time in general. Honestly, I don't remember a whole lot of what happened, just because it has been, like I said, about a year since I played it. But going back through footage for this video, lots of what I'm seeing just all feels very familiar. The game also looks amazing. It has probably some of the best environmental visuals out of all the games, especially the space section. Playing that again from the demo made me feel very nostalgic. All of the battles during this game as well, they just felt so grand. Like, you could really sense the impact of the situation of what you were going through. And I think it did a great job with the characters as well. Coming to feel really connected with the teammates that you were playing alongside, which did make their deaths hurt a little bit more than they should have. And of course, anyone familiar with these games is going to be well acquainted with that final level. At first, I didn't actually understand what was going on, and I genuinely was trying really hard to survive, and I just didn't realize that it was pointless in the end, so... Next on my list is actually one I wasn't expecting, Halo 4. I was skeptical going into this one simply because I knew nothing about it. Like, over the years of hearing people talk about Halo, I'd never heard anyone mention anything about this game aside from the fact that it merely existed. Like, at least with Halo 5, people talk shit about it all the time, but I'd heard nothing negative or positive about Halo 4, but I genuinely did enjoy it. From a visual standpoint, I think the game has probably the best looking cutscenes and the coolest action set pieces out of all of them. Almost every time the game stopped to do some story dumping, I was just like in awe at what was happening. And I got to sit and really take it all in because the cutscenes in this game are quite long. Speaking of which, there are definitely some sections that went on a little longer than they needed to, like the desert area following the mammoth, or that part inside the building, I don't remember where it was, but with the moving platform that kept stopping and starting all the time. But they were still snappy enough that it didn't dampen the entire experience of the game. Another thing I actually quite liked about it that I feel like isn't talked about enough is the change up of the enemies. Like, aside from all of the usual Covenant, there's also the Promethean enemies you have to go up against, and I actually liked the change of pace when it came to these sections. They also helped me find my new favourite weapon, which is the Suppressor. Speaking of combat, I did have a good time with it. The variety of new weapons, the new enemies, and just everything involved made it feel all really fresh and exciting. And I'm also not sure if it was just me personally, but I feel like the melee attack was just more punchy in this game than some of the previous ones. And again, the vehicle segments, there were so many in this game. Like, I swear you get to pilot at least one of every rideable machine to ever exist in this universe, especially the Mantis sections. Those were my favorite. So in general, I did enjoy my time with this game. I'm also not sure if it was because I dedicated like the past year of my life to these games, or if it was just the game in general, but finishing it and seeing Master Chief get to take off his suit did make me a little bit emotional. My only other critique is we did encounter a glitch at the very final part of the game where the audio had cut out, so there were no sound effects or characters' voices, it was just like a very slight background music. So that did kind of dampen the effect of the final few moments with Chief and Cortana and all of that. But whilst I was gathering footage for this video, I did get to watch it again, and it definitely does hit the feels for sure. Coming up next on the list is Halo 3 ODST. This one was my boyfriend's personal favourite in the series, so we did have high expectations for it. To be honest, I was tossing up for a while between ODST and 4 and trying to decide which one I liked more and which one was above the other, and while I did enjoy ODST, I think I did have to slug through it a little bit slower than 4. The game itself was fun, like I have no real complaints mechanic-wise, it's just, again, my problem comes down to the pacing. For anyone unfamiliar, you play as the member of the ODST squad alongside the events of Halo 3, and during the course of the game you swap between all the different characters to see how they got in the situation they were in. So essentially you trudge through like the ruined city as the main character, and you find the items that will cue flashbacks where you play as the other characters. And those sections are great. It's just that main part where you go back to that city area each time that just drags. It was such a wide open space, but it just felt really empty and bland, and having to navigate through all the office buildings and just the samey looking streets did get a bit tiresome after a while. And I think honestly if it weren't for that little objective marker waypoint, I would have gotten so ridiculously lost. One comparison I was thinking a lot about while I was playing it was how similar it felt to the game Fear. Like the open city sections, especially the layout of the office buildings, flashing back to all the different characters, it felt a lot like playing Fear again, but I really liked that game, so I can't even tell you if that's a negative or not. Alright, it's time for the last two games in the series, Halo 1 and Halo 2. And next is Combat Evolved, which means that number 2 does come last. So first, we'll touch on Combat Evolved. There's nothing necessarily wrong with the game, it just unfortunately gets this low under no fault of its own. It's a product of its time, and just going up against so many newer games competing with it, it doesn't hold up as well as I would have liked. especially since playing through the collection we started with Reach, so having to jump back into Combat Evolved definitely felt like a step backwards. It was paced pretty decently and it played well, all things considered. It's just at the end of the day was a little bland. And again, I can't blame it for this. Like, it's the oldest game in the series. I mean, it released on a console that's 4 entire generations old now. So it just kind of happens. The environments do get a little bit repetitive, and it doesn't look terrible, but it doesn't really look great either. It's just, again, not its fault. It does do a good job of setting up for the rest of the series and all the other games that came after it, but when you do put them side by side, it does start to show the cracks that are formed over the years, unfortunately. And lastly, down the bottom of the list is Halo 2. I had heard everything under the sun about this game, but I went in so badly wanting to like it. And my largest complaint is, shockingly enough, the pacing of the game. The first third was fine, but everything past that, we genuinely were questioning for a few days if we even wanted to see it through or just skip on to the next game. I'm sure anyone who's ever watched a top 10 worst video game levels video has heard of The Library, but they're not kidding about it. I think it probably took about 30 to 40 minutes of running through the exact same looking hallway, fighting thousands of flood enemies. I started to think it was genuinely never gonna end. And it just seemed to start a trend for the rest of the game. Every level from here on there probably could have had at least 10 minutes cut out of it and still would have served its purpose just fine. So it's definitely the longest game out of them all. And out of all of them, we probably racked up the most deaths in this one as well, but that could just be from pure exhaustion. Its one saving grace, I think, is the dual weapon wielding is a cool feature, but I just didn't use it enough for it to save it, unfortunately. And the UI is probably my favorite looking UI out of all of them, but again, just not big enough to save it, unfortunately. So there you go. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed, and feel free to subscribe for more ranking videos in the future. Also, do be sure to check out my Twitch channel if you're interested in horror gameplays and things like that as well. We would love to have you there. But until next time, have a wonderful time zone, and goodbye.